We're gonna go to the math section. So, question 1, a group of students voted on 5 after-school activities. The bar graph shows the number of students who voted for each of the 5 activities. How many students chose activity 3? Looks something just less of 40, so 25. It's actually B, 39, right? What is the solution to the given equation? X squared over 25 equals 36. Multiply by 25 on both sides. X squared equals 36 times 25, 900. Square root of 900 is 30. Skip this one. What percentage of 300 is 75? So 75 over 300. It's going to be slightly less than, well, you know that 100 over 300 is 1/3, so that's 33%. So something less than 33%, so 25%. 3 more than 8 times the number x, right? So 3 more than 8 times the number x equals to 83. What's an equation that represents this? It's kind of wrote slightly differently, but D, right? 8x plus 3 equals 83. Hannah deposited a fixed amount into her bank account each month. The function f of t equals 100 plus 25t gives the amount in dollars in Hannah's bank account after t monthly deposits. What is the best interpretation of 25 in this context? So I was to plug in 0. What does that give me, right? It means she had 100 to start with. So every month, I get an extra 25 bucks, right? So A, with each monthly deposit, the amount in Hannah's bank account increased by 25 bucks. Yep, that tracks. 6, a customer spent $27 to purchase oranges at $3 per pound. How many pounds of oranges? So it's just basically 3x equals 27, x equals 9. So how many pounds of oranges? Oh, yeah. How many pounds? He purchased 9 pounds. 7, Nasser bought 9 storage bins that were each the same price. He used a coupon for $63 off the entire purchase. The cost for the entire purchase after using the coupon was 27, so let's work it backwards. So he bought 9 storage bins. We don't know what the price is per storage bin. We're going to call the price per storage bin X. And then he used a coupon, right, of 63 bucks. So if I had to solve per X, which is the price per storage bin, I just rearrange it. Since this is a negative sign, then becomes positive. So 9x equals 90, x equals 10. He paid $10 per storage bin. 8, I got a table. By the way, I know my y-intercept already, right? Because x equals 0. So it's got to be 29. So I can immediately eliminate B and D. And that slope is friggin' crazy. So the slope, the y value increases by 3 every time, so it is a slope of 3, right? 2 right triangles, right? They're saying that Q is 18 degrees. We know a triangle 180 degrees, right?
Can I close the door?
Sure, thank you. So 90 plus 18 plus x equals 180. This is 108, so x equals 180 minus 108, x equals 72 degrees. Scatter plot, right? They're looking for a line of best fit. What's our y-intercept of the line of best fit? Something just below 10, right? So it's not going to be 0.9. So I can eliminate A and B. And I need a negative slope, right? Because this line is trending in that direction. So that eliminates C. So D is the correct answer, right? Okay, given the equation, it describes the number of birds, B, the number of reptiles that the pet business take care of each day. So if the business cares for 16 reptiles on a given day, so 5 times 16 equals 80, right? It means I can't have any birds, right? So A is the right choice there. The equation of the graph, what's the equation of the graph shown? Intercept, right? -8. So y equals mx plus b. I need -8. Oh, they all have -8. It has a negative slope, right? So that eliminates b, right? And the tricky part about this line in the graph is that it's by 2, right? It's not by 1. So I'm going to pick 2 points, right? So it moves each value. It goes, so hold on, let me get these 2 points. I'm going to grab them real quick. So this is -6. I'm going to take this and this. So -6, -2, right? And -4, -4. So this has what? A slope of, what's the slope here? We can eliminate 2, by the way, because that has a positive slope. Is the slope 1 or 2? Yeah, C. If x over 8, obviously that's 40, what is the value of 8 over 40? 1/5. The solution to the given system of equations is x, y. What is the value of y? This is just like super goofy. System of equations, you take one and plug it into the other, right? So 72 minus 6. So I'm going to take this first equation and rearrange it to get 72 minus 6x. So then I plug this back into the first equation, right, to get common terms. So 24x plus 72 minus 6x equals 48. You could clean it all up. You get 18x equals, what's 48 minus 72? Negative 24, I think, right? So I got negative, what, 3 over 2?
No, -4 over 3.
Yeah, excuse me, negative 4 over 3. Good catch. You can plug all that in. Y is equal to 80. Line T in the xy plane has a slope of -1/3 and passes through the point 9, 10. Which equation defines the line T? So obviously A and B are out because the x value for the slope is incorrect. And then you can use the y equals mx plus b, right? So they give us y, right? They give us b, right? -1/3 times 9. We're going to get b. So 10 equals -3 plus b. b equals 13. D. The function f of x equals 206, 1.034 to the x models the value in dollars of a certain bank account where by the end of the year, each year from 1957 through 1972, where x is the number of years after 1957. Which of the following is the best interpretation of f of 5 is approximately equal to 243? So each year after 1957, so 1957 plus 5 is 1962. So B is the correct answer there. You can plug it in your calculator to check it, but really it's not even a calculation question. It's just asking, what is this saying, right? 17, a certain rectangular region. For a certain rectangular region, the ratio of its length to its width is 35 to 10. Let's just draw that out real quick. If the width of the rectangular region increases by 7 units, so let's just add that on, 42, right? How must the length change to maintain this ratio? Sorry, I misread the problem. If the width of the rectangular length, okay, so this is L times W, my bad. L, W. So if the width, so if I have a new rectangle, and the width increases to 17, right, by 7 units, what must the length change to maintain that ratio? So we can test this by determining the area, right? So we know it's not going to decrease, right? So that immediately eliminates A and C. And then this is just proportional, right? So you can multiply those two out, but it's increased by 7, right? 24 would be kind of crazy. 18, square P has a side length of X inches, square. Oh, let me double check. I don't have a calculator on me. Oh, proportional. Yeah, it's B. My bad. This is what happens when you don't have a calculator. Like you can check yourself, right, to determine the area and then to see if proportionally they're the same. So this would actually be 20. That'd be 59.5. Yep. You said 7 times 3.5? Yes. Yeah. That's it. That's a good way to approach that problem too. Yep. Square P has a side length of X inches. Square Q is a perimeter length that is 176 inches greater than the perimeter. So you got 2 squares. We'll call this P, and that's X. And then Q is 166 inches greater than the perimeter. So we know that the perimeter is 4x, and then they're saying the perimeter of Q is what? Is 4x plus 176, but they want area, right? So you're kind of comparing apples and oranges. You gotta, this is in terms of area, but we have to manipulate that to get that in terms of, this is perimeter, but we got to get that in terms of area. So you could also describe P as X squared. So, and then we know that all of these answers have a square function associated with them. These are crazy. So it's really comes down to A and B, and you can plug in your own numbers, but basically you'll find that that square function, it's 44, because as you add 44 to each side, that is the increase in perimeter. The 176 increase in perimeter.
I understand the answer, but I was just wondering how P is X squared.
From that, length times width is area, right? So you could, or excuse me, you could say it's x or 2x.
You're right about that.
Yeah, yeah. $19. So they give this equation. They want us to clean this all up and express it in terms of W. So I can clean up a little bit of it just without kind of looking this over. So the first thing I can do is actually I can go x over 2y equals 2 square root w plus 19. These actually cancel. So now I'm just down to x over y equals square root w 19, square both sides. I get x over y squared equals w plus 19. Rearrange the w, get x squared, x over y squared minus 19, which is c. It's just manipulating the equation. Not too hard. The point O is the center of a circle, and the measure of the arc RS on the circle is 100 degrees. What is the measure in degrees of its associated angle ROS? So O, right? They give us R. And then 90 would be here. We're just past that. We're at, S is about there, right? And it's saying it's 100 degrees, right? So what is the measure of the arc? It's 100 degrees. Don't overthink it. The expression that is equivalent to AXB, where A and B are positive constants and X is greater than 1. What is the value of A plus B? This one is kind of bonkers. Basically, they are saying that you can rewrite this as it's basically a grind. You just take, you apply this to the fifth root to the other terms here. So you get 5 over 5, which is what, 1, and then x 45 over 5, which is 9. So that gets a 9. So you got c 6 3 x to the 9, which is 18x to the 9 times, and then we're going to clean this up, 2 to the 8th over 8. I'm just going to go right to it. And then x to the 1/8, right? So this whole thing simplifies out to 18x to the 9th times 2x to the 1/8. And yes. And then they're saying, then they take this second, then they use the multiplication exponent property and do a bunch of stuff. Go home and look at that one. I don't know what they're talking about like that. That one's pretty nuts. 22, right triangle has sides lengths of 2 root 2, 6 root 2, and square root of 80. So they tell us it's a right triangle, and we know what is what side of a right triangle has the greatest length? That's right. Which of those 3 values is the hypotenuse?
The square root of 80.
Yep. And it really it could, either one could be. What's the formula for area of triangle? Yep. And that comes out to, well, you can actually simplify that, right? Because you can take like terms too. So I get 12 times 2, right? So 24 times 1/2. Is it 12? Let's see. Yep, it's 12. The expression 4x squared plus bx minus 45, where b is a constant, can be written as hx plus k times x plus j, where h, k, and j are integer constants. Which of the following must be an integer? So we can multiply all this out, this expression, and that equals hx squared plus hxj plus kx plus kj, right? And then we can, they're saying you can simplify that to hx squared plus jh plus k, sorry about my handwriting, times x plus kj. And then they say therefore is equivalent to the original expression, and so 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So it follows that this is minus 45, and that the other portions of the equation, they're saying that j equals minus 45 over k. And that since j is an integer, this is a weird one. They're saying that 45 over k must also be an integer. That, I don't know, you just got to go through more problems like that to become more familiar. Pretty weird. 24, in the given system of equations, a is a constant. The graphs of the equations in the given system intersect at exactly one point in the xy plane. What is the value of x? So I can take the second equation and plug it into the first equation, right? So I get 3x plus a equals 2x squared minus 21x plus 64. That, if you simplify it out, gives you 0 equals 2x squared minus 24x plus 64 minus a. Since the system of equation only has one solution, and that a quadratic equation in the form I'm not going to torture you guys with the last couple ones. You can try those on your own. They're pretty tough. But we're halfway done. We'll take a little break and we'll start the reading section. I feel like you got to be doing a lot of math on the daily to be like solving those types of questions. 21?
So like, we didn't finish this, like, you have the answer.
Yeah. Sorry. Why do I keep skipping over? Sorry. Oh, that's why, because in the answer guide, they're back to back. Okay, so 21 is 361 over 8.
I know that, it's 37.
And you wanted 24? C. No, that's all right. Yep.
And then 26, C. I'm not wrong on that one.
D.
And then 27, 5.
Yep.
Okay,
Good job. They really ratchet up the difficulty around like 20, 21, 22. It's pretty wild. That's where the curve starts. Like, well, actually, yeah. Like the curve, you get from the number of correct answers from 0 to 27. You start, the curve peaks probably at like 14 or probably 15 or 16. And then as soon as you start getting, after that, it gets, the descent begins. Use the restroom. So as I understand it, the test in school is April 16th, and it's on an iPad? Okay.
Is the PSAT gonna be on there, but you're not on?
I think so, yeah. It's all
Okay. And I think I was watching some YouTube videos, and they, depending on how many questions you get right in the first section, they give you but it's not truly like, my girlfriend took the nursing licensing exam, and every question was either more difficult or less difficult based on whether you responded to the previous. So that's like a true adaptive, but like you either get a easier section or a harder section. Like it's binary, it's one or the other.
You know, when I took the PSAT, I did so bad on the first math section, but the math was so easy the second time, and I felt like I'm so mad.
No, that's why it's practice. I mean, it's
I haven't even learned some of this stuff. I'm still a sophomore.
yeah. Well, the sooner you guys, the more practice you do, it's a grind. It can be learned. You don't even need to be, I think, really, you don't need to take higher level math. You don't need like it's just algebra and maybe a little bit of geometry. There's no trig on the SAT. It's all algebra. So if you do enough hard algebra problems, you can get a pretty good math score. And the reading and comprehension section, I think, is it's the same thing. You just keep, the more practice you do, the better you'll do on the test. So. First question is about like resale. We were dropping something off that she sold on Depop. I've never heard of Depop. Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna do the second reading section. All right, second reading section, number 1. The fashion resale market, in which consumers purchase secondhand clothing from stores and online sellers, generated nearly $30 billion globally in 2019. Expecting to see continued growth, some analysts blank that revenues will more than double by 2028. So it's a prediction, right? They're predicting what will happen in the future. 2, artificially delivering biomolecules to plant cells is an important component of protecting plants from pathogens, but it is difficult to transmit biomolecules through the layers of the plant cell wall. A researcher and her colleagues have shown that it may be possible to blank this problem by transmitting molecules through carbon nanotubes, which can cross cell walls. Which choice completes the text with those logical or precise word or phrase? Conceptualize? No. Neglect? No. Illustrate? No. D, overcome, right? They're overcoming the challenge. 3, particle physicists like Ayanna Halloway, Ars, and the second researcher spend much of their time blank. What is invisible to the naked eye. Using sophisticated technology, they closely examine the behavior of subatomic particles, the smallest detectable parts of matter. So which word fits in best there? Selecting? No. Inspecting, definitely a strong possibility. Creating, I don't think there's any creating going on. Or deciding, I don't see deciding. Inspecting. Anthropologist Christian Carlson and her colleagues examined the fossilized clavicle and shoulder bones of a 3.6 million year old early hominin known as Littlefoot. They found that these bones were blank. The clavicle and shoulder bones of modern apes that are frequent climbers, such as gorillas and chimpanzees, suggesting that Littlefoot had adapted to life in trees. So which choice best fits there? Surpassed? No. They're making a comparison, so B, comparable to. Independent doesn't fit. Obtained doesn't fit either. 5. Raija Wong, the protagonist of Samuel Delaney's 1966 novel Babel 17, is a poet, an occupation which, in Delaney's work, is not blank. Nearly a dozen of the characters that populate his novels are poets or writers, so they're pretty frequent. What fits in there pretty frequently? Let's go bottom up. Tedious? No. Lucrative? No. It's a double negative, right? Not atypical, right? 6. For a 2020 exhibition, a photographer and neurobiologist blank a series of new images based on a series of alphabet posters from the 1970s known as Black ABCs, which featured black children from Chicago. The photographer photographed now adult models and layered the photos over magnified images of the models' cells, resulting in what he called a micro and macro portraiture. So what best fits there? Validated? I don't think validated. I don't think challenged. He's creating a new work, so restored might, like, he's kind of sort of, but created, I think, really kind of fits in best there, right? 7, in addition to being an accomplished psychologist himself, Francis Cecil Sumner was blank, increasing the opportunity for black students to study psychology, helping to found the psychology department at Howard University, a historically black university, in 1930. Which choice completes the text with the most logical and precise word or phrase? Let's go bottoms up. Distraction? No. He wasn't a beneficiary. He himself was creating something. Supplement? Potentially, but he was really a proponent of, right? So he was looking to further or advance the representation of a group at Howard University. 8, whether the reign of a French monarch such as that guy or Henry I was historically consequential or relatively uneventful, its trajectory was shaped by questions of legitimacy and therefore cannot be understood without a corollary or understanding of the factors that allowed the monarch to blank his right to hold the throne. So what fits there best? Reciprocate? I don't think that quite fits. Annotate? I don't think that either. Disengage? No. That leaves us to buttress. You don't see buttress often, but it allows him to validate. I think validate would also fit there. So validate, buttress, reasonably close, I would think. 9, some bird species don't raise their own chicks. Instead, adult females lay their eggs in other nests next to another bird species' own eggs. Female cuckoos have been seen quickly laying eggs in the nests of other bird species when those birds are out looking for food. That's underlined, so let's just focus on that for a moment. After the eggs hatch, the non-cuckoo parents will typically raise the cuckoo chicks as if they were their own offspring, even if the cuckoos look very different from their own chicks. So a claim or an observation is shared. Female cuckoos have been seen quickly laying eggs, so they just kind of like dine and dash in this other nest, and these other birds take care of these cuckoo chicks. So which choice best describes the function of the underlined sentence in the text as a whole? A, it introduces a physical feature of female, no. B, it describes the appearance of cuckoo nests mentioned earlier in the text. I don't think that is the focus of that section either. C, it offers a detail about how female cuckoos carry out the behavior discussed in the text. Yes, right? So it's talking about what happens, and then there's this sentence that really kind of pulls it together and makes it real about referencing how this all comes into existence. 10, cats can judge unseen people's positions in space by the sound of their voices and thus react with surprise when the same person calls to them from 2 different locations in a short span of time. A researcher and his colleagues reached this conclusion by measuring cats' levels of surprise based on their ear and head movements while the cats heard recordings of their owners' voices from 2 speakers spaced far apart. Cats exhibited a low level of surprise when the owners' voices were played twice from the same speaker, but they showed a high level of surprise when the voice was played once, each from the two different speakers. So according to the text, how did the researchers determine the level of surprise displayed by the cats in the study? Let's go bottom up. D, they tracked how each cat moved around the room. No. C, they studied how each cat physically interacted with its owner. They're examining the cat's behavior in this and whether it focuses its attention based on where it expects the sound to be coming from, right? B, they examined how each cat reacted to the voice of a stranger. There's nothing in a stranger, right? It was their owner's voice. So that just leaves us with A. The researchers determined the level of surprise based on the movements of the cat's head, based on the placement of the speakers and the owner's voice coming from two different locations, which kind of surprised the cat, right? 11. A student performs an experiment testing her hypothesis that a slightly acidic, this was crazy. I remember reading this one, and I'm just going to read you the answer because it's totally nuts. So they reference this plant, and let's just break it down. So she has a hypothesis that it will grow better in a slightly acidic environment. And then they introduce the experiment where she's planting seeds in a highly acidic environment, right? Highly acidic, which is way different than slightly acidic, referenced in the beginning. That was the focus of the passage, the hypothesis, that they go better in slightly acidic. So it's kind of like this, the reason I struggle with this is because it's kind of an open question. Like, they're referencing three completely different variables. One with no acidity, one with low acidity, which presumably it grows slightly better in, and then it grows best in a slightly acidic environment, and then one in which she's using coffee grinds, which is a highly acidic environment. And then the prompt basically says, which finding, if true, would most directly weaken the student's hypothesis? So again, going back to her hypothesis is saying that a slightly acidic environment is beneficial for the growth of this plant. And yet, the experiment consisted of a highly acidic environment and a neutral environment. Right? Or it doesn't even really say that. It kind of says the absence of coffee grounds. So we don't really know anything about this other environment. I really had a difficult time with this one. And they're saying that choice A is the best answer because it describes an experiment outcome that would most directly weaken the student's hypothesis. According to the text, the student hypothesizes that the plant will benefit more from acidic soil than it will from neutral soil. The text then explains that the student planted the seeds in coffee grounds and another in seeds in without coffee grounds. If the hypothesis were correct, the plants in the more acidic environment, so the one with the coffee grounds, would grow faster than those in the control group. However, choice A proposes a scenario in which the plants without the acidic soil grow significantly taller than that of plants that grow in the acidic mixture. So there's just a lot going on with that one. That was kind of tough. 12. The Young Girl is a 1920 short story by Catherine Mansfield. In the story, the narrator takes an unnamed 17-year-old girl and her younger brother out for a meal. In describing the teenager, Mansfield frequently contrasts the girl's pleasant appearance with her unpleasant attitude. When Mansfield writes of the teenager, so I need two things in the option the choice that's correct. I need a description of her appearance, and I need a description of her unpleasant attitude. So let's go from the bottom. She didn't take her gloves off. She lowered her eyes and drummed on the table. When a faint violin sounded, she winced and bit her lip again. Silence. I don't see anything about her physical or her pleasant appearance. C. I saw that she couldn't stand this place a moment longer, and indeed she jumped up and turned away while I went through the vulgar act of paying for the tea. Again, I don't see her appearance described. B, while we waited, she took out a gold little powder box with a mirror in the lid, shook the poor little puff as though she loathed it, and dabbed her lovely nose. So that's the first choice that I've seen with a direct reference to her physical appearance. So I'm really strongly leaning closer to this one. Let's just check A. I heard her murmur, "I can't bear flowers on a table." They had evidently been given her intense pain, for which she positively closed her eyes as I moved away from them. So all of these choices had reference to her being a brat, but there was only one, B, that referenced her or made mention of her physical appearance. 13, so they give us a table, and then they describe it by saying high levels of public uncertainty about economic policies of a country. High levels of public uncertainty about which economic policies a country will adopt can make planning difficult for businesses, but measures of such uncertainty have not tended to be very detailed, and economists analyze trends in news reports to derive measures not only for general economic policy, but also for uncertainty. So sometimes you can just go right to the questions and then see which of these actual options is true. So which choice most effectively uses data to illustrate the claim? And then the claim, so the prompt, one revelation of the economist's work is that a general measure may not fully reflect uncertainty about specific areas of the policy, where general economic policy uncertainty, so this is the one that we want to focus on, right? So we need to find a option that references the general economic policy, right? So let's just read through them real quick. All of these pertain to general economic policy. So A, align closely with uncertainty about tax and public spending. In 2005, is that true? But differed from uncertainty about tax and public policy by a large amount in 2009. No, that's not true. So general economic policy was substantially lower than uncertainty about tax and public policy. Spending policy from each year. Was it substantially lower? No, that's not true. C, reached its highest level in 2005 and 2010. So far, so good. In the same year that uncertainty about trade policy and tax public policy reached their lowest levels. No, I don't, that second part is not right. D, substantially lower than uncertainty about trade policy. Yep, that middle one, it's substantially lower and was substantially lower than uncertainty about trade policy in 2005 and substantially higher than uncertainty about trade policy in 2010. Yeah, that's true. So D. 14, linguist Deborah Tannen has cautioned against framing contentious issues in terms of two highly competitive perspectives, such as pro versus con. According to Tannen, this debate-driven approach can strip issues of their complexity and, when used in front of an audience, can be less informative than the presentation of multiple perspectives in a non-competitive format. To test Tannen's hypothesis, students conducted a study in which they showed that participants one of three different versions of local news commentary about the same issue. Each version featured a debate between two commentators with opposing views, a panel of three commentators with various views, or a single commentator. So, again, focusing on the first portion of the passage, it's presented that, what is her hypothesis? A debate-driven approach, or this one-on-one format, is less informative of multiple perspectives, which would also contrast against a single presenter. So of the three options, It's saying that the second option, a panel of 3 commentators, is most effective. So the prompt is asking which finding from the student study, if true, would most strongly support Tannen's hypothesis. If an audience is more informed, they're most likely to retain more information or give a more accurate summary of what is being discussed. So A, on average, participants perceive commentators in the debate as more knowledgeable about the issue than the commentators in the panel. No, that would directly contrast or come into conflict with her claim. B, on average, participants perceive more commentators in the panel as more knowledgeable about the issue than the single commentator. I don't think there's really anything there that suggests that. C, on average, participants who watched the panel correctly answered more questions about the issue than those who watched the debate or the single commentator did. Definitely C, right? Because that directly supports her hypothesis that was presented in the passage, in that people with multiple different viewpoints in a panel format are the audience is more closely able to discern the validity of what's being discussed. 15. King Lear is a 1606 play by William Shakespeare. In the play, the character of King Lear attempts to test his 3 daughters' devotion to him. He later expresses regret for his actions, as is evident when he blank. Which choice most effectively uses a quotation from King Lear to illustrate the claim? So go ahead and take a moment to read those. So he's expressing regret. So we're looking for an option here in which he is most clearly expressing regret. So A, says of himself, I am a man more sinned against than sinning. I don't really see a strong expression of regret there, so not A. B, says during a growing storm, this tempest will not give me leave to ponder on things would hurt me more. Maybe, we'll come back to that. C, says to himself while striking his head, beat at this gate that let thy folly in and thy dear judgment out. Yes, right? That's a pretty clear expression of regret when you're hitting your head. 16. Many of William Shakespeare's tragedies address broad themes that still appeal to today's audiences. For instance, Romeo and Juliet, which is set in the Italy of Shakespeare's time, tackles the themes of parents versus children and love versus hate, and the play continues to be read and produced widely around the world. But understanding Shakespeare's so-called history plays can require a knowledge of several centuries of English history. Consequently, blank. So in the first part, they talk about how Shakespeare's plays still have a broad appeal to people today. And they reference Romeo and Juliet, which is a tragedy. And then they contrast that with Shakespeare's other set of plays, which can be categorized as history plays. But the challenging part of the history plays is that, and they close it out, that you really need to know several centuries of English history. So what does that mean broadly? Like, in your own words, like if people today need to know several centuries of English history, which would be, between Shakespeare's plays, more popular or can connect with modern audiences, tragedies or history plays? There's 2 types of plays that they're talking about. Which one is can be most easily understood by modern audiences? Yes. So, which choice logically completes the text? Many theatergoers and readers today are likely to find Shakespeare's history plays less engaging than tragedies. Yes, exactly for the reason you stated, which is because not many people, or fewer people today, are aware of centuries of English history compared to decades or even centuries ago. 17, Ancestro Puebloans, the civilization from which present-day Pueblo tribes are descended, emerged as early as 1500 BCE in an area of what is now southwestern United States, and they then dispersed suddenly in the late 1200s CE, abandoning established villages with systems for farming crops and turkeys. Recent analysis comparing turkey remains at Mesa Verde, such as one village in southern Colorado, to samples from modern turkey populations in the Rio Grande Valley of north central New Mexico determined that the latter birds descended in part from turkeys cultivated at Mesa Verde, which shared genetic markers appearing only after 1280. This had a lot going on in it. I struggled with this question as well. And they're referencing that B is the correct answer. And B states, some ancestral Puebloans migrated to the Rio Grande Valley in the late 1200s and carried farming practices with them. And the reason, or the explanation they give, is that choice B is the best answer because it presents the conclusion that most logically follows from the text discussion of ancestral Puebloans' migration to the Rio Grande Valley. The text states that in the late 1200 CE, the ancestral Puebloan civilization abandoned villages in its original homeland, which included the Mesa Verde site. The text goes on to say that recent genetic analysis has demonstrated that the modern turkey population in the Rio Grande Valley descends partly from the ancient turkeys raised at Mesa Verde, and that the genetic markers shared by the two turkey populations first appeared at Mesa Verde only after 1280 CE. Therefore, it can reasonably be concluded that some ancestral Puebloans migrated to the Rio Grande Valley in the late 1200s and carried their agricultural practices, including the farming of turkeys, to their new home. The way I read it, I was confused that it sounded like the way this sentence was written, that they were already there in the 1200s, and that they just kind of like got up and left. So that was, for me, I don't know, I just found that question pretty challenging. 18, one challenge when researching whether to hold elected office changes a person's behavior is the problem of ensuring that the experiment has an appropriate control group. To reveal the effect of holding office, researchers must compare people. So this is the setup. To reveal the effect of holding office, researchers must compare people who hold elective office with people who do not hold elective office or who are otherwise similar to the office holders. Since researchers are unable to control which politicians win elections, they therefore blank. A, struggle to find valid data about the behavior of politicians who do not currently hold office. That's plausible. We'll come back to that. B, can only conduct valid studies with people who have previously held office rather than people who presently hold office. Maybe, but I think that's kind of a stretch. There's no reference in the passage to someone whether they were either holding office presently or previously. C, should select a control group of people who differ from office holders in several significant ways. I don't see that contrast reference in the passage. Or D, will find it difficult to identify a group of people who can function as an appropriate control group for other studies. I think that really kind of fits with the rest of the passage because they're saying research, they kind of frame it as a challenge. And they kind of present this problem saying that they have to be able to find two groups of people, one that holds elective office and those that don't hold elective office. So presumably you're looking exclusively at a pool of candidates, but because they don't actually know who will win, the election based on that pool of candidates, it's almost impossible in some ways to define the control group because the group themselves, the candidates are mixed together. There is no control. So it's D. 19. In his groundbreaking work, Bengali Harlem and the Lost Histories of South Asian America, Vivek Bald uses newspaper articles, census records, ship logs, and memoirs to tell the blank who made the New York City their home in the early 20th century. So it's plural. So I definitely think I can eliminate A and B. That would be reference to an individual story, right? And comparing C and D, stories, plural, right? So that fits. So this would be, this also is plural, right? The use of apostrophe after the S. But the one difference there then is the use of the apostrophe after immigrant. And again, you're collectively speaking about the immigrant stories, so dual plural there. C is the best choice. 20. In her new major series, Memory Test and Autobiography, a painter explored different themes, blank, healing, self-discovery, and memory by cutting and sewing back together pieces of canvas and inserting personal artifacts, such as postcards, into some of the paintings. Am I crazy to just think that there's no punctuation necessary there? No, I think really you don't need any punctuation there. So A is the correct choice. So two people that grew up frustrated by the lack of diverse characters in books for young people, period. In 2011, the two writers joined forces to found Cake Literacy, a book packaging company, and then we have a few options there, specializes in the creation. So I'm going to need a that. I can't, it just doesn't flow without that. And I don't think you need a comma there to separate it out. I think you can just roll with company that, right? 22. A study led by scientist Rebecca Kirby at the University of Wisconsin-Madison found that black bears that eat human food before hibernation have increased levels of a rare carbon isotope blank due to higher C13 levels in corn and cane sugar. Bears with these elevated levels were also found to have much shorter hibernation periods on average. So what is our choice there? So they already, directly before that, we have a comma, right? So, and then we're introducing a proper, or what's being referenced. It's linking to the isotope itself. So I do think we're going to need a comma after that because it's kind of encapsulated in its own identification, right? So the question there, you can actually, it's all one thing. You don't need the comma after carbon-13. The element being identified, that it's singular in of itself, so you don't need that comma between carbon-13 and its abbreviation. In 2010, an archaeologist was visiting the 12th century temple of Angkor Wat. I swear that was in the last passage, in the first section. In Cambodia, when he noticed markings of red paint on the temple blank with the help of this definitely was. The help of digital imaging techniques, he discovered the markings to be part of an elaborate mural containing over 200 paintings. He noticed markings of red paint on the temple walls with the help of digital imaging techniques. I don't think you need a comma or a period, so I think that eliminates A and D, and I don't, so with is wordy, so B, right? It just logically flows and continues the sentence. 24, working from an earlier discovery of some chemists that were winners of the 2020 Nobel Prize in chemistry recreated and then reprogrammed the so-called genetic scissors of a species of DNA-cleaving bacteria blank, a tool that is revolutionizing the field of gene technology. To forge, no. That actually could be plausible. We'll come back to that. Forging, no, because I think you need something before to connect to forge. So that would subsequently eliminate B and C. So to forge or and forging, definitely and forge. To forge. Of a species of DNA cleaving bacteria to forge a tool that is revolutionizing the field of gene technology. Yep, that fits best. In 2016, an engineer oversaw the installation of 164 bioswales, which are vegetated channels designed to absorb and divert stormwater along the streets of Queens, New York, by reducing the runoff flowing into city sewers, blank. Which choice completes the text so that it conforms to the conventions of standard English? Kind of an inverted sentence. By reducing the runoff flowing into city sewers, what is causing the reducing of flow off into city sewers? Bioswales. So the choice that I need to select here needs to immediately go into bioswales. So that would eliminate A and D. So in choosing between B and C, just reading them, the bioswales have mitigated both street flooding and the resulting pollution of nearby waterways. Or the bioswales mitigation of both street flooding and the resulting pollution of nearby waterways has been achieved. I think B is the more grammatically correct version of that sentence, just because it directly continues what the bioswales have mitigated. They've mitigated street flooding and they've reduced the resulting pollution. 26. A study published by Rice University geoscientist Ming Tang in 2019 offers a new explanation for the origin of Earth's blank, which are structures called arcs, towering ridges that form when a dense oceanic plate subducts under a less dense oceanic plate, melts in the mantle below, and then rises and bursts through the continental crust above. So I definitely think you need you need some punctuation there to separate it out. So A is definitely out. And then D doesn't, geological structures, that's not a grammatically correct sentence. So looking at the two choices, either using a colon or a semicolon, and they have referenced that using a colon is correct. And the reason that they state is that the convention being tested is punctuation use between a main clause and a supplementary phrase. In this choice, a colon is correctly used to mark the boundary between the main clause and the supplementary phrase, and to introduce the following explanation of the origin of Earth's continents. 27. In a 2021 launch, Rocket Lab's Electron rocket experienced an unexpected failure. Its second stage booster shut down suddenly after ignition. Blank, instead of downplaying the incident, Rocket Lab's CEO publicly acknowledged what happened and apologized for the loss of the rocket's payload, which had consisted of 2 satellites. Let's go through the options, bottoms up. Similarly, I don't see the connecting of two separate ideas or positions. Indeed, I don't think it's set up for Indeed. Additionally, I don't think it's a summation after kind of the expression of those two different sentences in that passage. It's definitely afterward, right? Because you're talking about an event that happened in time, and then after that initial event happened, this was the resulting action that the CEO had taken to explain or apologize for what had occurred. 28. When soil becomes contaminated by toxic metals, it can be removed from the ground and disposed of in a landfill. Blank, contaminated soil can be detoxified by phytoremediation, plants that can withstand high concentration of metals, absorb the pollutants, and store them in their roots, which are then cut off and safely disposed of, preserving the health of the plants. Okay, so it's saying that, the plants can take the pollutants and store these pollutants in their roots, and that connects to the first portion of the passage by saying, this is a specific example of this occurring. So alternatively, I don't see a contrast being referenced in the first and second portions of the passage. I don't know if specifically, wait, hold on, I need to go back to, when the soil becomes contaminated by toxic metals, it can be removed. Oh, you know what, I need to backtrack on the first part because when I reread that first sentence, when a soil becomes contaminated by toxic metals, it can be removed from the ground and disposed of in a landfill. So what you can do is you can take soil and you can put it in a landfill, or you can use certain plants that are able to take the pollutants present in the soil, and they have a mechanism by which they're able to kind of remediate the soil and store those pollutants in their root system. So it really is kind of describing an alternative, right? Like there's the traditional way of disposing of contaminated soil, and then there's this other method through which the soil can be, remediated or fixed. 29. While researching a topic, a student has taken the following notes. The calendar used by most of the world, the Gregorian calendar, is 365 days. But because 365 days can't be divided evenly by 7, which is the number of days in a week, the calendar dates fall on a different day of the week each year. The Hank Henry permanent calendar, developed as an alternative to the Gregorian calendar, has 364 days. And because 364 days can be divided evenly by 7, calendar dates fall on the same day of the week each year, which supports more predictable scheduling. A student wants to explain the advantage of the Hank Henry calendar. And that really, right, is described in that last bullet point. Because 364 can be divided evenly by 7, calendar dates that fall on the same day of the week fall on the same day of the week each year. So somewhere in one of the options, I need to see that, right? So A, the Gregorian calendar is 365 days, which is one day longer. No, that's not it. Adopting the alternative calendar would help solve a problem with the Gregorian calendar, maybe. Designed so that calendar dates would occur on the same date. Yes, I really like that one. Am I right? I gotta double check. Yes. See. While researching a topic, a student has taken the following notes. I'd assume that's some Native American Indian name. Confederacy is a 1,000-year-old alliance of 6 Native nations in the northeastern U.S. The members are bound by a centuries-old agreement known as the Great Law of Peace. A historian is one of several scholars who believe that the principles of the Great Law of Peace influence the U.S. Constitution. This theory is called influence theory. It's interesting. This historian cites the fact that Ben Franklin and Thomas Jefferson both studied this Indian Confederacy. Student wants to present the influence theory to an audience unfamiliar with the tribe. Which choice most effectively uses relevant information from the notes to accomplish this? So, what should my answer contain? Again, focusing on the prompt, influence theory. What did it influence? It was the law of great peace influenced the Constitution, right? So I should see something to that effect in the answers. Let's go from the bottom. Native people, including the members of the tribe, influenced the founding of the U.S. in many ways. I don't think that's probably the strongest choice. C, the influence theory holds that the principles of the Great Law of Peace, a centuries-old agreement binding 6 native nations in the northeastern U.S., influenced the U.S. Constitution. That is very, very strong candidate. B, the influence theory is supported by the fact that Ben Franklin and Thomas Jefferson, I don't think there's enough detail there in B. A historian believes that the Great Law of Peace was very influential, not directly referencing what was influential about it and that what it's connecting. So C is really the strongest choice there. 31. We're researching a topic. A student's taken the following notes. An astronomer in 1999 studied the differences between surface temperature between the sun and nearby stars. He mapped out that's a significant distance. The surface temperature of the sun is around 9,800 Fahrenheit, which classifies that as a G star. A majority of the stars in the study were classified as K or M stars. So they were colder than our sun, which is interesting. And then they said 11 of the 357 stars in the study were classified as A or F stars with the surface. So of a significant minority, there are actually few stars with surface temperature hotter than our own sun. It's interesting. I didn't know that. Student wants to emphasize how hot the sun is relative to the nearby stars. So I got to have a comparison there, right? Like I need to part versus whole. It's just scanning these. This is the only one that I see any reference to part versus whole. And I'm wrong? Wait, 31? I'm wrong. So why did they say A? So, wait, okay. Student wants to emphasize how hot the sun is relative to nearby stars. Oh, how hot the sun is. Sorry, I was rushing ahead of myself. They're talking about the temperature of the sun. So that would actually eliminate most of the stars within the I need a comparison. So that eliminates D. I don't see a comparison in C. Really, the only comparison I see is in A. And it references how hot the sun is relative to the other stars. 32. While researching a topic, a student has taken the following notes. The Atlantic Monthly was first published in 1857, focused on politics, art, and literature. In 19, a historian published the book Faraway Women in the Atlantic Monthly. Its subjects were female authors whose autobiographies appeared in the magazine in the early 1900s, and one of the authors discussed is Juanita Harrison. Student wants to introduce this guy's book to an audience already familiar with the Atlantic Monthly. Which choice most effectively uses relevant information from the notes to accomplish this goal? So they're familiar with Atlantic Monthly, so they must know politics, art, and literature. And then there has to be reference to the author, of course. So let's go through the options. So Catherine Halverson's Faraway Women and the Atlantic Monthly discusses female authors whose autobiographies. It's too general. I don't know. B, a magazine. Actually, I might come back to that one. A magazine called the Atlantic Monthly referred to in Catherine Halverson's book title was first published in 1857. I think that's too general. Faraway Women in the Atlantic Monthly features contributors to the Atlantic Monthly, first published in 1857 as a magazine focused on politics, art, and literature. Come back to that one. D, an author discussed by Catherine Halverson is Juanita Harrison, whose autobiography appeared in the Atlantic Monthly in the early 1900s. They're saying A, and they're saying the sentence effectively introduces Catherine Halverson's book to an audience already familiar with the Atlantic Monthly, noting that the title of Halverson's book and describing its content without providing background information about the Atlantic Monthly. I thought there would be at least some lead-in to Juanita Harrison, but apparently that's not the case. Last question. While researching a topic, students taken the following notes. The magnificent frigate bird is a species of seabird that feeds mainly on fish, tuna, squid, and other small sea animals. It is unusual among seabirds in that it doesn't dive into the water for prey. The one way it acquires food is by using a hook-tipped bill to snatch prey from the surface of the water. Another way is for it to acquire food is by taking it from weaker birds by force. This behavior is known as kleptoparasitism. The student wants to emphasize a similarity between the two ways a magnificent frigate bird So similarity between the two ways, which is interesting because those two ways seem pretty different. One way it uses its beak and it gets it directly out of the water, and the other way it just straight up yanks prey from the other birds, right? So they're saying, their prompt is asking similarity between the two ways that they acquire food. So let's go through the choices. A magnificent frigate bird never dives into the water and says, instead, I don't see reference to the two ways, so I don't think A is a strong choice. Neither of a magnificent frigate bird's two ways of acquiring food requires the bird to dive into the water. That's true. It can get the prey without having to go in the water by using its bill, or it just steals its prey from another bird. So that's true. We'll come back to that one. C, of the bird's two ways of acquiring food, only one is known as kleptoparasitism. I don't see a reference to similarity, right? So I don't think that's a strong choice. D, in addition to snatching prey from the water with its hook-tipped bill, a magnificent frigate bird takes food from the other birds by force. Again, I don't see the tie into similarity. The prompt is asking for a similarity between the two methods, and the only choice that references a similarity is kind of brought out by that neither, right? Neither method that the bird uses require it to go in the water. So that's kind of drawing that similarity. So we're going to go with B. All right, that's it for that section. We just got one more left. I'll probably only go up to 20 or 21 before the questions get stupid. So we're close. Right on time, too. Actually, a little bit ahead of schedule. There are two additional, I just saw that College Board added two additional sample practice exams. When I first started doing this tutoring at the beginning of March, they had 4, and this is the 4th one. They added a 5 and a 6. So if you're looking for extra practice, it's on their website.
Thank you.
Um, you at the Nashville Special. What's your name?
Josie,
Alex. Nice to meet you.
you too.
How did you hear about this?
I'm not really sure. My mom told me about it, but I think she follows like a Facebook group.
Yep. Yeah. I'm running for school board this fall. I graduated from Troy High. I went to U of M. I'm 38 years old. I bought a house in Troy. I don't have kids yet, but one of the things, how I got involved with all of this is last year, I guess, they made a change in the curriculum. They've eliminated 9 and 10 honors English
Oh yeah.
and honors middle school math. And there were like a lot of people pretty upset about that. And we went to the May school board meeting where 34 people spoke, 33 were against it, and they still voted to they still voted to eliminate those honors courses. So we were pretty upset about that. And I've gone to every school, there's 2 school board meetings a month, and I've gone to pretty much every single one of them. And I also, I have this, I stream the workshop meeting. They live stream and record the regular meeting, but they have never live streamed the workshop meetings, which are actually of the 2 meetings where they actually go into like discussion of like curriculum and policy. So it's a mystery to me why they don't like try to rebuild trust with the community by like just putting this on YouTube. Like Rochester, Birmingham, Bloomfield, they all, except for Rochester, they all live stream and put their meeting recordings on YouTube. Just because everybody knows you, like, YouTube's a pretty accessible thing. And they're not, my biggest frustration is like, they're not really transparent with what they do. They kind of seem like they're like hiding, and I don't know, that just annoys me. So I'm running with 2 former principals. There's an assistant principal from Athens, which is actually the blonde guy, his aunt, Audra Melton. And there's another principal from Morse Elementary, Stephanie Zendler. So the 3 of us are going to be running for school board this fall.
Dr. Melton was our interim principal last year.
Yep. She also, when she started her career, she opened up, she was a principal at International Academy on Square Lake Road. Originally, Troy students would go to the Square Lake Road IA. And then about 10 years ago or so, they then moved Troy students to the IA location at Baker. I didn't even know about that. Oh, okay, yeah.
And sometimes he tells me about how like the IA really use their gym and stuff.
Hmm.
It's literally one big building.
Is it one building or is it?
It's just like one big building, but like there's doors that separate the middle school from the high school. They're literally just connected to a hallway.
That's interesting. I mean, that's got to be, well, in middle school, I don't know how many, you know how big is graduating class, or like how many students are in an IA grade?
I don't know exactly, but I don't think it's as much as like Athens or like
Hmm.
high.
So probably like 150, 175.
I'd say that.
Yeah. One other tidbit. So, the state of Michigan, the reason why you take the SAT in school is the state of Michigan mandates it. They require all 11th grade high school students to take the SAT in April, basically. And the state of Michigan treats it as a pass-fail. And to pass either the SAT math or reading section, you need 430 out of 800. But even though 430 out of 800 is higher than 50%, I think on the curve, that's actually one or two answers less than 50%. So you don't even need to, you need to score close to 50% to score passing. Unfortunately, I think at Athens, 45% of the students scored not proficient in SAT math. So that's like all schools nationally and even I think globally, because of COVID, are dealing with learning. It's referred to as a learning deficit. Like we're a little bit behind where we probably should be. It's not that that happened, or that's the fact that is the case at Athens. That's the problem. It's just that they don't really talk about it. I go to these board meetings and they talk about it once a year, and I think that it needs to be discussed a little bit more frequently than it does. And I know the reason why they don't. It's because they're embarrassed about it. And it's like there's nothing to be embarrassed about. Like we just need to move forward to like fix this. And that's why I'm doing this, because even though I'm confident all of you would get more than half right, but obviously that is a small number compared to the total number of students at one of the high schools. But they run a pretty prolific social media operation with all of their Facebook and Instagram posts. If they can spend that much time and money, doing all that, they can get one of the auditoriums and have someone go through the sample exams and just set the vibe. Like, this matters. The community wants to see, after they've invested 12 years in educating kids, that the school district, which calls itself world class, isn't leaving half the kids at one of the high schools who, less than. I don't blame the kids. It's the adults, and the adults got to treat it in an adult way. And having an adult way is being open, honest, and transparent, and having a plan to get back to pre-COVID levels. That's, if I had to summarize why I'm running in a nutshell, I am focused on getting the academic performance back to pre-COVID levels. Period. That's it. That's all that matters. So that's my spiel on school board stuff. All right, let's finish this out. 1, the line graph shows the estimated number of chipmunks in a state park on April 1st of each year from 1989 to 1999. Based on the line graph, which year was the estimated number of chipmunks, in the state park the greatest? Duh, right? 94. 2, a fish swam a distance of 5104 yards. How far did the fish swim in miles? So 1 mile equals 1760 yards. So let's, so if we say x of 1 is 1 mile, or 1760 yards, we can just rewrite this expression as 1760x equals 5104, right? So x equals 5104 over 1760. Definitely not that, so it's got to be that, right? Pretty easy mental math. Which expression is equivalent to 12x cubed minus 5x cubed? That would be 7x cubed, right? Everybody knows how to do that, because the expressions are the same. If they were different, that would be a different story. 2 systems of equations. What is the solution xy to the given system of equations? Well, that means simply plugging this in. So we get, if we plug in 5y into the first expression, we get 5y plus y equals 18. So we get 6y equals 18. My y's are pretty bad there. 3, so 5 times 3 equals x, 15 equals x, right? So remember, I gotta write it as 15 comma 3. And that's A. The point 82 in the xy plane is a solution to which of the following systems of equalities? What the? They're both greater than 0. Is that? I think that's all it's testing, right? Let me double check. Yes. I haven't seen a question like that on any of the previous examples. What is one possible solution to the given equation? Wouldn't that be 15? I mean, you could also do what? Negative 5, yeah. So it's 15 or negative 5. Function gives the total number of people on a company retreat with X managers. What is the total number of people on a company retreat with 7 managers? So that's the same thing as rewriting the expression of f of 7 times 7 plus 1, which is 50, right? So given the expression, this table gives 3 values of x and their corresponding of h of x for the given function h. So if I plug in, it's just 1, 2, or 3, right? So it's basically saying h of 1, h of 2, h of 3, which if I plug in 1 squared is 1, minus 3 is negative 2, so the first one's negative 2. Second one is 4 minus 3, which is 1. Third one is 9 minus 3, which is 6. So these are my coordinate pairs, or my pair values. 1, negative 2. I only eliminate C and A. My next one is 2, 1. Okay, they both have that. And then my third one is 3 and 6. So that gives me B, right? The function f is defined by f of x equals 170 times 0.1 to the x power. What is the value of f of 0? Any value to the 0 power is what? What's 270 times 1? 270? It's 270. To estimate the proportion of a population that has a certain characteristic, a random sample was selected from the population. Based on that sample, it is estimated that, this is really getting redundant, it is estimated that the population of the population has a characteristic of 0.49 with the associated margin of error of 0.04. Based on this estimate and the margin of error, which of the following is the most appropriate conclusion about the proportion of the population that has this characteristic? So let's just start with 1, and then I go what? I either have 0.49 or 0.51, but it does reference I have a plus or minus of 0.04, yes? So I kind of like, well, where's my starting point? It references that, this is tricky. I'm very tempted to say the plausible values are derived from this 0.49, so that would take me to what? 0.44. If my margin of error is 0.04, it takes me to, 0.45, and then in the other direction, it takes me to 0.53, right? I definitely C, no. D, no. B, no. It's interesting. They kind of took it. Yeah. So it's A. So they took the starting value that they referenced in the margin of error, and then they just used that margin of error in both directions. And none of the other answers really have that at all. So 11. A moving truck can tow a trailer if the combined weight of the trailer and the boxes is no more than 5,600 pounds. So it's like, what? No more? That's not even the equal. It's just straight up less than 4,600, right? What is the maximum number of boxes this truck can tow in a trailer with a weight of 500? So the trailer is 500 straight up. And then the boxes are like, what, 1200X, or excuse me, 120X. So I get 120X, bring it over to the other side. Bring it over to the other side. 4,600 minus 500 is 4,100. Somebody who has a calculator. 34? Let me double check it. Yep, that's right. What is the positive solution to the given equation? Boy, this kind of looks like Pythagorean theorem, right? I don't know how else you're going to solve that. 9/4? Yeah. Quadratic is right. Do they reference using quadratic? They said, what? Hold on. Oh, maybe I'm looking at the wrong section. Well, they had some crazy math, but what method did you use to solve it? Oh, okay. Yeah, that could that could work too. 7 and 4 definitely seem. You would definitely need a fraction, and then you could just plug and chug, right?
But why couldn't one of the answers be 4?
Uh,
I'm really confused on that, because I did it like
Let's try it.
where you move it all and put it over to 0, so then 36 becomes positive, and then you multiply 4x squared, or negative 4x squared times 36, and you get negative 44, or 144. And then negative 144 divided by 16 equals 9, or negative 9. And then I just like plugged that all back into the equation, and I got x minus 4, and then I also got another equation being,
So I got negative 4 times 4 squared, which is 16, minus 28 equals negative 36. So I get negative 64 minus 28. That's not going to equal negative 36. So you can plug. So I think
I moved the 36 and made it. This is what I did. I moved it all over and made it into 0. So then you have positive 36, and then you have these, and then you multiply this with it.
Okay, so what you did was you took negative 4x squared minus 7x minus 30, or excuse me, plus 36 equals 0. And then what?
I multiplied negative 4 times positive 36. I got negative 144.
You multiplied this negative 4
Yeah.
by 36.
Yeah. This is what I remember learning from like earlier this year in algebra 2. I could just be wrong, but I'm
No.
getting 9 over 4
You wouldn't-
and 4.
If you were to multiply this by 36, I would think you would need to do that to the whole expression, wouldn't you?
No. I just remember that's how I learned it, is you do negative 44, like the x squared times the one that doesn't have an x.
You get 9 over 4 and 4.
Yeah.
Then you have to check your balance after that. You can't just say those are super great answers.
Hmm.
9 over 4
Oh yeah, that makes sense. That's probably what I'm doing.
Yeah. I like it. just plug it in. I mean, this is not a hard expression to plug in values for.
You know what? I totally forgot about plugging it back in. Yeah, you're right. That makes sense.
13, the table summarizes the distribution of color and shape for 100 tiles of equal area. If one of these tiles is selected at random, what is the probability of selecting a red tile? So, how many red tiles are there total? 30. How many tiles are there total? 100. So it's just 30 over 100 or 30%, right?
It's a 9%.
Oh, wait, so if one of these tiles, sorry, if one of the tiles is selected, what is the probability of selecting?
It'd just be 3%.
Oh, yeah. What is the probability? Yeah, I think that's a 3 over 10 or 30%. 3 over 10 is equal to 30% because 30% is 0.3 or 3 over 10. 14, for the f of x equals 2x plus 3. For the given function of the graph of f of x in the xy plane is parallel to j. What is the slope of j? This is really the 14th question. Like, this is so easy. It's just 2. 15, a proposal for a new library was included on an election ballot. A radio show stated that 3 times as many people voted in favor of the proposal as people that voted against it. All right, we're going to need to work it backwards because they then say a social media post reported that 15,000 more people voted in favor. So 15,000 were for, and then we're asked how many were against. And then in that first sentence, it stated that 3 times as many people voted in favor than against. 3 times as. So this is favor, right? They said 15,000 more people voted in favor than against it. And then, why am I not seeing 3 times as many people voted in favor as against it? And then a social media post reported that 15,000 more people voted in favor than against it. Wouldn't it be 15,000 divided by 3?
Because the answer should be 7,500. Because you're doing 7,500 times 3, and then 7,500 plus 15,000 is
Right, yes, that's right. Because you need to take the total number of people who voted, right? So, but 3 times as many people voted. Wait, why am I having such a difficult time wrapping my head around? Okay, so they're saying because it was 2151, so you're really taking it by, which is 3. I don't know, I got sucked into thinking that,
So
yeah.
your equation should be y is equal to 3x, and then y is equal to 15,000 plus x, which is 7 equals each other.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. That's right. All right. 16. In the figure, lines M and K are parallel if x equals 6k plus 13 and y equals 8k minus 29. What is the value of z? It's interesting. So we can say that both of these values are equal to each other, right? Because they're parallel lines. So I got, I don't like how this is written. (42), right? K equals 21. So they're asking for, well, I want to solve for the value. So 21 times 6 equals what, 126? Yeah, 126 plus 13, which equals 139, 180 minus 139. 41, right? Yeah. Minus 3x plus 21px equals 84. In the given equation, p is a constant. The equation has no solution. What is the value of p? Well, if p was 0, I could still solve that. So I'm pretty sure it's not a. Because if p was 0, this would be minus 3x equals 84. And you could solve for x. What else? Interesting. What if I factored out 3, right? Just as a method. I'm gonna take 3 out of this whole thing, because this all can be factored by 3. So I get minus x plus, 3px equals 84 divided by 3 is what? 28.
You don't really need to do that. It's just 1/7. You just want 1/7 equals 0. So 1/7 times 21 is positive 3.
Mm. Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good tool. So basically, what you did was you took. Let's rewrite the expression. If you multiply, what, both sides by 1/7?
No, just p by 1/7. P is equal to 1/7. So then you get positive 3x. And then 0 is equal to 84, which is 95.
Positive. Yeah, I think it's just like another plug and chug kind of question. Instead of just trying to do the algebra of it, you just start plugging in values and seeing which one, the one that works. The function f is defined by the given equation. For what value of x does f of x reach its maximum? I have a feeling this is going to be another one of these. Yeah, I'm going to plug it in for this one. Its maximum. Definitely not. I'm going to guess it's not that. Which one was it?
I had C, -3,
Okay. Yeah. More plugging.
but I could be wrong.
Let's see. They said D. You could, I think they let you use graphing calculators, and I think you can just.
Yeah, this is the
Cor-
second portion, so they let us use graphing calculators. But even you can probably do it.
Yeah. The function, that guy, gives the metal ball's height above the ground in inches after it's thrown or started moving on a track between 0 and 10. I assume it's seconds. Which of the following is the best interpretation of the vertex of the graph in the xy plane? The vertex. Like, I wish I could graph that expression. Because isn't it saying, so when this is 0, it's still I would have to see what that would resolve out to, because that's still going to give you an integer value. It's not just 3. It's something other than 3. So they're saying the vertex of the graph. Is the vertex the? Oh, it's a parabola, right? Is it an upside down parabola? No, it's not. It's just shifted to the right by. Well, it's only looking at the portion of the function between when from f of 0 to f of 10. So what is f of 0? It's some value, right? So you could put it in your graphing calculator and then strictly isolate on from the values from 0 to 10, because you can plug in negative. You're not looking at that. You're just looking at a subset of the function, which is from 0 to 10. So I would put it in my graphing calculator and then look. The vertex, I'm guessing is it like this? Or is it like?
Well, I mean, it would be 3 inches, because say at 7 seconds, right? You get 7 minus 7 squared, which is 0 squared,
Right,
which is
0.
plus 3, which would be also minimum height is 3.
Does it ever decrease, like,
It can never go below, because like if you have 6, right?
right?
Then you'll have negative 1 squared, which is 1. And then if you have 8, it'll be the same thing.
Got it. All right, in the given equation, b is a positive integer. The equation has no real solution. What is the greatest possible value of b? Oh, excuse me, I skipped one. In triangle JKL, cosine 24 over 51 in angle J is a right. Cosine K equals 24 over 24 over 51, and angle J is a right angle. What is the value of cosine of L? So J, K, L. Isn't it opposite over hypotenuse, adjacent over? What's the 3 values? Sine, cosine, and tangent. Sine is what? Opposite over adjacent?
Yeah, opposite over. No, sine is opposite over hypotenuse.
Yeah, sorry. Cosine is what?
Adjacent.
Over hypotenuse. Opposite over adjacent, right? Oh, let me JKL.
So J is the right angle, K is the one above it, and then L is the.
Oops. So they're saying K, cosine opposite, which is 24, and 51, and then you can do a squared, b squared, c squared. What's this side?
Well, it's cosine of K is 24 over 51, so the adjacent is 24, not the opposite. But it's the same math. You just do.
Oh, sorry.
You just do 51 squared minus 24 squared, and then take the square root of that.
Yeah. 24 squared plus b squared equals 51 squared. What does that come out to?
It's 45.
45.
B squared, or b is equal to 45.
So the cosine of L,
Would be 45 over.
45, yeah, 45 over 51. What's the next one we're doing? How are we doing? We'll make this the last one. Negative x squared plus bx minus 676 equals 0. In the given equation, b is a positive integer. The equation has no real solution. what is the greatest possible value of b? So they say we can use quadratic, so a is -1, b is unknown, but it's positive, and c is minus 676. And then they also say it has no real solution if and only if minus 4ac plus b squared is negative. In the given equation, a equals -1, c equals negative 676. Substituting -1 for a and negative 676 for c in this expression yields a discriminant. So b squared, which is unknown, minus 4a, which is -1, and c minus 676. So b squared comes out to 2704. And then they say the value must be negative. So rewriting that expression, it means that it's less than 0, or b squared is 2704 positive if we're bringing it to the other side. So b has to be less than 52, and the next closest value, or the largest value that it would largest integer value that it would subsequently be if it's less than 52 is 51. Hooray! We'll call it. Keep practicing.